All right, we are live. Paul Salter, welcome. Looking forward to this conversation today. So let me just do a quick intro, although we'll splice a longer one in. I understand you're a registered dietitian. We're, MDK Project Brothers, and that's an episode I've yet to do. Looking forward to, but super excited about this because you specialize in sustainable weight loss. I know that's something that so many of us struggle with. I made kind of the MDK reference because our coach, our mentor, Bedros Keuilian, talks about how so many people overestimate what they could do in a year and underestimate what they could do in a decade. I know you've been at this for almost a decade, and your stats are ridiculous. You've worked personally with over 1,400 people, 10,000 or more pounds lost across those clients and kept off, right? And so what really fascinates me, and I'm really looking forward to getting into about this, is we all have something to work on physically. Sustainable weight loss is a thing physically, but you really specialize in the mindset component of that and how it fits together with success in this, right? So again, welcome, and supplement that for me and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate the intro and I'm thrilled to be here. And like you kind of alluded to, it's great to connect with another MDK brother. And yeah, the long story short is, throughout my journey, I've been fortunate enough to, after obtaining my registered dietitian credentials, work with a very diverse population, ranging from people on the verge of bariatric weight loss surgery, think 600 plus break surgery, to those on the brink of an Olympic gold medal. And I spent a lot of my time working with collegiate, professional, and elite athletes. But what I kept finding was through my own personal challenges and journey and connecting with honestly just like friends and friends of friends, those that we would classify as general population, I was really seeing that they were not set up for success when it came to trying to lose weight and keep it off. As I kind of joked with you before we hit that record button, the weight loss industry doesn't really do much to help you succeed after day 90 or after the 30-day cleanse or detox, whatever it is they have convinced you to try. And if they did, well, they'd probably lose out on billions of dollars. And I really took a keen interest to helping people find their own way through balancing a return to their own redefined definition of normal after losing weight, so that they could keep off the weight and still live life to the fullest en route to simply feeling, looking, and being the best version of themselves.
That's amazing. Yeah, showing up in the best possible way for ourselves, for others, in service to our families, business, career. It really does start with the physical. It's hard to really perform at an excellent level when you're not feeling right health-wise.
1,000%.
When you say your personal journey, was that just exposure to others, or what's your background? Do you have an athletic background? Do you have a weight loss background yourself?
Yeah, so I was a multi-sport athlete growing up, and I always like to say the catalyst for my journey was 16-year-old multi-sport athlete on the football team, standing a whopping about 5'2", 110 pounds at that time, and clearly trying to seek every advantage and resource I could to keep up with everybody. And fortunately, quickly recognizing that what I ate made a difference. And I always like to add in there, I proudly claim 6 feet today. It just took me a little while to get there. But for me, in the beginning of college and all the way throughout my college career, I got into competitive bodybuilding. So I was fascinated with human performance and what the body was capable of physically, and the role that what we put into it had on, losing fat, building muscle, etc. And although I had a lot of success and a lot of fun and great memories there, it also took me down a pretty dark, deep path related to skipping social occasions, feeling, married to the MyFitnessPal app, stressing and overthinking every bite of food I ate. And I realized it became quite isolating. And I think a quote, you'll probably resonate well with is, when we suffer in silence, we remove all hope. And that was definitely me. There were a lot of disordered eating tendencies, and I just really missed out on so many memories. And as I got my own life back in order and really reclaimed my sense of confidence, control, and clarity here, I started to notice that even though I didn't have a massive weight loss challenge or journey myself, I was able to relate to all these emotional and mental challenges that those who were trying to tackle a weight loss goal had. And my ability to connect with people over there really proved to be an advantage in helping me accelerate the results we were looking for.
So is that where the sustainability piece comes in? It seems like you have some people that truly make a permanent lifestyle change from maybe just a level of physical activity. Maybe they, I don't know, run or hike or something for the first time, and then find out how much they love it, and they're able to sustain that, and that helps with the maintenance piece. But for so many people, I think what you just described is really probably the key to sustainability, is how all this looks mentally and how that shows up emotionally, socially. Is that kind of the key to what you do?
Absolutely. Because if you think about it, the weight loss and fitness industry as a whole conditions us for some fairly disordered thought patterns and behaviors that are, deemed normal in that particular industry. But when we take a step back and look at them, logging every single bite of food we eat, measuring every single bite of food we eat, although there are several advantages and structure is such a foundational element to success, for most people, that's not how they want to be spending the rest of their lives. So we really have to learn to take a step back and filter through a lens of sustainability. The only problem is we don't know what we don't know. And the weight loss industry, the media, the social media, the marketing is so freaking hard. It's hard for us to actually see outside that there is another way to look, feel, perform our best.
Well, it does seem confusing, I think, for most of us as well, because the science is constantly changing, the research, sort of what we know and what we prove out. So one day fat's bad, one day fat's good. Right? But I guess one question I wanted to ask about sustainability and maybe like the path. So if I'm thinking about like a weight chart, and I'm my weight's coming down.
Yep.
Oftentimes that journey of bringing the weight down is challenging. It doesn't feel great. And so there's really sort of this battle of delayed gratification here. But
yes,
for whatever reason, like the human mind wants to always think that everything is permanent. And so you're going through this sort of weight loss and feeling like, well, this process sucks. And this is what it's going to be like forever. But once you hit a target weight, as long as it's a sustainable weight, does that start to feel different physically and mentally? So is there sort of an emotional and mental hope that sustaining is in some ways easier than the loss process? Does that make sense?
It does. And so what I found are a couple things. First and foremost, I would say, let's just stick with, our country, America as a whole. We're really freaking good at losing weight. Like if you think about it, hundreds of millions of people diet every year. And the average person who does diets about 4 times per year. We're good at losing weight. Problem is we're freaking atrocious at maintaining that weight loss. And that's why we have 4 diets a year, because we have not been able to sustain the results from the first diet. And one of the biggest advantages someone can adopt when really trying to make this weight loss stick is reframing their mindset, and kind of playing off the quote you shared to kick off this episode about what we can accomplish in a year versus 10 years is when it comes to achieving sustainable weight loss, like we need to remember a couple things. First and foremost, you didn't gain all that weight in 3 weeks. So don't expect it to come off in 3 weeks. Secondly, it's going to take you a lot longer than you think. And it's also going to be a lot harder than you think. So that's the second thing we kind of need to make a mental note and accept. And then the third thing is basically that although you are trying to lose weight and you know what to do, all of your success in any aspect of life, but especially sustainable weight loss, is just doing the simple things consistently. And that's boring as hell. And it can be really easy to adopt shiny object syndrome and want to do 15 other things and not focus on just the monotony of simplicity that truly drives success. But if we can make the little mental flips in our mind, pivot that nth of a degree and focus on those 3 variables, it starts to become easy, second nature, effortless.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and definitely, yeah, the weight doesn't come on overnight either. Definitely, we had a year and a half of COVID quarantine to put it on, right?
Yeah.
Pack it on. What this isn't exactly along the lines or springboarding off of what you just said, but calories, and again, we get all this conflicting information. Do I watch macros? Do I watch total calories? Is it my eating window, right? All these different kind of things. But how much is the math of calories in, calories out does that still hold? And to the extent calories are important, how do each of us figure out how many calories a day that we need or we should have based on weight and activity?
Yeah, so the math is still important. At the end of the day, the basic, golden rule of weight changes, if you will, is if you want to lose weight, you need to be taking in fewer calories than you're burning. And when it comes to counting, do I focus on calories, macros? You are going to create an opportunity for a couple distinct advantages if you do shift your focus away from calories and kind of narrow down to, protein, carbs, and fats. And those advantages are going to be wrapped up in optimizing energy levels, performance, recovery, appetite management, positive physique changes, etc. And when it comes to managing, however way you want to manage those numbers of your choice, there's always a good chunk of wiggle room for error in estimation, whether it's the actual scientific lab estimations or it's just human error or it's nutrition labels being as inaccurate as 30%. So what we can extract from that is simply find a way to manage your portions, just like you budget or manage your money, that is in line with your lifestyle, that is simple, individualized, and sustainable, and just simply focus on what you can control. And if you do that consistently, you're going to gain the appropriate feedback to make the necessary adjustments to alter course, whether you need to lose weight, maintain weight, gain weight, etc.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story from my just last few weeks along those lines. So we mentioned a couple names off air, and one of these guys suggested, hey, tracking macros or get an app and track calories. Not, to your earlier point, I don't want to live in there and I don't want to obsess around it. And I don't want to manage my life around that. But it was more for awareness and insight. And we talk about portion control because I spent 6 or 7 months traveling abroad. And I remember coming back to the US and I couldn't eat a full portion at a restaurant in the US because our portions have grown so big. Right. And in terms of portion control, the in terms of portion control, the other day I started plugging stuff into one of those apps, and I'm like, okay, cool. I usually do my intermittent fasting, so I didn't eat until lunchtime, early afternoon, and I forget what I had, and then this and then that, and I go, well, like, plus or minus, I should be good. I'm a pretty big guy, so I'm probably not 2,000 calories. I'm probably at a steady state that's going to be a little bit more than that from a budget perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm doing like an hour and a half WOD in the morning. And then we walk our son to school. And so I throw on the 45 pound ruck. So
Nice.
I always get about an hour ruck in the morning. And then I'll get an evening run in while he's practicing soccer. So like I got a pretty decent level of activity going.
Yeah.
And I think, the quality of what I'm putting in should be pretty good. So I'm thinking like I'm going to be in the right ballpark. And then I added the stuff up for the day and I came in at like 5,500 calories. And I'm like, all right, wait a minute. There's something's gone off the rails here. But just that awareness of like, wow, where did that happen? Oh gosh, like those pistachios, they're going down like nothing, and they're packing a bunch of calories. Or that hard salami, man, that thing's loaded with calories too. So at least it wasn't something to obsess over, but it gave me at least a tool for a little bit of awareness of where I might make some tweaks.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually, every one of my clients or community members, one of the first tasks they have is to log their food for 3 days for exactly the reason you said, awareness. And I find every single time, no matter how strong someone's nutrition foundation is it generates more awareness on an area for growth. That either I can come in to deliver some education or some feedback, or they're like, oh, dude, I used to do this all the time. I'm not doing it. Let me just quickly course correct, and then bam, we've made a positive change simply through awareness, like you mentioned.
So what else do you do that's fundamental to how you work with these guys? And in particular, how much of it has to do with, whenever I think mindset and discipline, I think daily routine. And the
Yeah.
only way I'm getting up and doing my workout at 5:30 in the morning is if I get to bed on time. So it's always like the evening routine sets up the morning routine success or the whole next day. And when it comes to food, again, if I don't hold to that, then I'm sitting there watching Netflix, throwing down pistachios, right? So is the kind of how you spend your day piece part of what you do, or where else do you start when you work with clients?
Yeah, so the routine structure is an incredibly important component that is introduced very early on. But it's probably the step before, if you will, is beginning to spread a big bright spotlight of awareness on where our self-sabotaging behaviors are originating from. So we'll do a lot of deep inner work trying to bring awareness to the origin of some of our negative self-talk, our inner harsh critic, the toxic thoughts we may have, the limiting beliefs, the self-sabotaging behaviors. And the reason we do this work is, for many of us, we've been conditioned to operate on autopilot to a certain degree, simply based on the fact that between the ages of 0 and 6 or 7, about 90 to 95% of our belief systems are formed. And the reason we develop these thoughts, these behaviors, this variation of self-talk, at one point in our life, it was essential to survive, to protect us. But now, we fast forward X number of years, and present day adult version of us doesn't need that harsh inner critic anymore, doesn't need the craving for love, this, that, the other, like we did when we were 5, 6, 7 years old. So by bringing awareness to those areas early on in our journey, we're able to form some level of understanding. We create an opportunity for forgiveness, but most importantly, we create an opportunity to begin rewriting our own story. So now we take back control of what is most important, is how we talk to ourselves, our word choice, because that serves as the catalyst that influences our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions, our results, and ultimately shapes our identity.
Yeah, 100%. So I introduced you as a registered dietitian and sustainable weight loss expert, but you're a coach, you're an author. I feel like we got in the door talking about weight loss, but most of what you do, it sounds like it's around mindset coaching, changing that inner dialogue, and kind of dive it into, some of us call it shadow work if we get that deep, right?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff of where's the origin of those beliefs, and how do we rewrite those beliefs for our vision of ourselves for the future.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's funny, about like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did a post on social media, like, me as a registered dietitian, but I kind of started to feel boxed in with that label, because I'm so much more passionate about so many other things than eat this, don't eat that. So you're absolutely right, because as you and I both know, us feeling, looking, performing, being better is about so much more than what we put into our body. And the truth is, from the age of 5 or 6, we all develop a basic understanding of what's healthy, what's not. We develop a basic understanding of, this is an appropriate portion size for us. This is what eating like an asshole looks like. So we gain this information from a young age. We know what to do. But then we just create a lot of self-imposed barriers between knowing what to do and actually doing it. So we want to tackle those barriers, which manifest as, the mental aspect, the spiritual aspect, or the emotional aspect.
Nice. So what's, just to take an example from a past client or generic example, what's a negative belief system that you've seen, or, how it shows up in negative self-talk, and then how that relates to weight gain or lack of weight loss or sustainability?
Yeah, so I've got a powerful, sad, but very true story from one of my one-on-one clients. She is the youngest of 2. And when, as early as she remembers, between the ages of 6 and 9, her father used to poke fun at her for not being able to fit in her older sister's clothes, which, were just the, standard hand-me-downs, because she was, too big, overweight, etc., as a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old girl. And, at the time, the girl's not really thinking anything of it, but she's internalizing these beliefs that, you're fat, you're overweight. And then we go a little bit further to learn that her dad would make these comments at the dinner table too, or every time he saw her eating ice cream or some kind of treat like food, if you will. So what this, eventually evolved into was teenage version of her, eating ice cream in her room after her parents were asleep, binging when she was binging in secrecy when no one else was around. And as you can imagine, this led to a terribly harmful relationship with food. It led to about a 40 to 50 pound gain of weight in a year as she entered college. And we fast forward to now, she's 28, 29, 30 years old. All of these behaviors are still in play. She still has no confidence, control, and clarity on her relationship with food. She's overweight. She doesn't feel good. She's lethargic, etc. And we were able to trace back the origin of why these thoughts were in place, simply because of how her father, talked to her. And it's very easy in a situation like this, because, we probably all have memories like this associated with someone in our upbringing, to place all of the blame on her father, to rebel all of a sudden. And Fortunately, we were able to take a different path in the situation because we have to remember, 9 times out of 10, our parents, our guardians are doing the best they can with what they know, what they have at the time. But we were able to really lean into forgiveness and really start to, substitute the words she was using to talk to herself, to describe her actions. And I am, really happy to say, after about 9 months of working together, and now fast forward over a year since then, no binges in more than 12 plus months. She has really developed a solid relationship with food. She's down a substantial amount of weight, but most importantly, she feels she's reclaimed her confidence and control, which has been an element missing her entire life.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. And she's lucky to
Yeah.
have you. This is such a tough battle, right? Everybody's got trauma.
Yeah.
Everybody's got baggage. Some, worse than others, but it doesn't matter, right? To each of us, it's impactful, and
Yep.
it could be a driving behavior. And as you said, the reality of the parenting that was going on there, if it wasn't abusive, uh, we all have imperfect memories, right? So
Yes.
what was actually happening and her perception of it and how it sat with her from a young age could have looked different depending on
Yep.
perspective, but it doesn't matter, right? All it matters is how it landed with her and how it drove her behavior. That being said, we all have stuff, but it is so hard because the manufactured food, the processed food industry has gotten so good
Yeah.
at inventing things that just tap into biology, right? Sugar is super addictive. We've gotten good at processed foods with, flavors and crunch and empty calories and
Yep.
things that tap into psychology of eating, survival
Yeah.
instincts, and the physiology, right? So we're battling not only ourselves and our inner self-talk and our inner demons, but we're battling the food industry as well.
Yeah. You're spot on. It's an uphill battle from many angles.
Ooh, crazy. So in her case, and that example you gave, what's your process? Like, what's your technique for helping somebody work through those beliefs?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we have to complete this comprehensive overview. I need to learn a heck of a lot about her in every depth imaginable in different realms, and from that, we then prioritize the most, or rather the best use of our time. What red flags stick out to me that if we address that one, it's going to provide the biggest return on investment. And the way that we work together, so a lot of my coaching involves a Zoom call, just like you and I are doing, so we can really create an opportunity to go deep and do some inner child work, blending in forms of, cognitive behavioral therapy, but also blending in forms of hypnotherapy and other forms of unconscious work there. And I can, quick side note for me, being introduced to the practice of hypnotherapy, complete game changer in my life in helping me really step into the next best version of myself. And working closely with my hypnotherapist, doing a lot of my own study and research, and being able to give that back to my clients, and particularly the example I shared with you, has really been a catalyst for accelerating the growth and the healing process.
Cool. I just I don't have much experience in those realms, but let me ask a couple things here. So
Yeah.
I asked a therapist, traditional psychologist type of therapist, a week or two ago. I go, well, like, what is the process that you use? Not you as a doctor, right? But what is the healing process for the individual? And his answer was, really, it starts with awareness. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of what we're talking about. And then I think his answer was, after you've got the awareness, then you've got to go through some process of cleansing or release or forgiveness, I think is a word you used. Uh, so I also do a lot of breath work, and breath work in a lot of ways can also be a very therapeutic tool.
Yeah.
It can be a very healing tool. The most intense breath work can be the most intense in terms of some of the emotions that come up and some of the release. And so if we really get into like the energetic space, uh, there's a theory that it's possible that trauma can be stored, pent up energetically in our bodies,
Yeah.
right? And so that some of the most effective healing has to do with the somatic healing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
movement coupled with the cognitive stuff, or coupled with something else. So Does that factor in for you at all, or does that resonate with you at all? Does movement come into your healing practice?
It absolutely does. So although, people approach me mainly from the nutrition, and like I joked with you before, I really quickly shift their focus to the mindset, emotion, and behavioral aspects as well. Movement is as much of a non-negotiable as we can particularly label it as. But I always like to preface, like, there's no wrong or right type of exercise. The best type is the one you are most likely to do consistently, which probably is going to boil down to the type you most enjoy, but it needs to be non-negotiable. And I always like to kind of share, I work with a lot of people who come to me wanting to lose at least 20, 30, 40 pounds, and they get so up in arms like, oh, I can't do the traditional CrossFit workout or go to the gym. And I'm like, that's fantastic, because I'm excited to tell you that there's this really cool study that's been going on for 60, 70 years. It's called the National Weight Control Registry. And to be a member of this study, these people have to have lost an average of 32 pounds, kept it off for a year. And then they're a participant. They undergo all this eval, behavioral analysis, these questionnaires every year. But the average person in here has actually lost more than 60 pounds, kept it off for 5 years. And the number one most popular form of exercise is just walking. So yeah, movement, non-negotiable in some way, absolutely resonates with me.
Nice. Yeah, and walking is great too. I love stacking practices. So I mean, walking, you're most likely going to get outside unless you're walking on a treadmill, right? So you go get some fresh air, some sunshine, vitamin D, maybe some time in nature, which what better thing to kind of help us out mentally. Just to kind of geek out for a second on just the elements of food and nutrition and I mean, again, we continue to research, we continue to learn, we continue to trend. And sometimes these trends and data, it takes us a long time to sort of learn what's going on. And we know that modern America, and this is spread to a lot of the world, we've got these problems with obesity and diabetes and heart disease, things that are killing and crippling us, and maybe underlying risk factors to things like viral infections, COVID, and others. So we look back at like the last century and a half going like, where did that switch flip? Where did that come from? And for a while we thought, well, like, meat is bad and cholesterol in our food is bad and fat in our food is bad. And then some of the more recent stuff is going, wait a minute, maybe it's the super processed industrialized trend that we've been on with seed oils that we invented. And then compound that with high temperatures causing chemical changes in those things, just whatever else is going into processed food, a lot of which isn't even necessarily disclosed or detailed.
The same thing.
Right. And sugars and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what's your thought around that, and how does that play into how you're helping people as well? Do you try to help them change the what's in the food that they're eating as well?
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You're absolutely right. And I like to keep things as simplistic as possible for those I work with, meaning, simple education that can be portrayed or described rather as, if it grazes or grows, it's probably a pretty damn good choice. And the word I like to use is, first, instead of viewing food as good or bad, we view it as fuel to simply help us feel, look, perform, be our best. And then we differentiate between premium fuel sources and regular fuel sources. So under the premium category is our lean animal proteins. We have our high fiber carbohydrates, of course, fruits, vegetables, our healthy fats that are rich in omega-3s. And we focus on those as much as possible. But then we also remember we are humans, whether you want to call it the 80-20 rule or whatever it is, food, fuel always serves a purpose. And every once in a while, it should serve psychological purposes for us to enjoy, connect with family, friends, etc., to enjoy ourselves. But the vast majority of our decisions should be influenced or contain rather a focus on premium fuel, so we continue to feel, look, be our best.
That makes complete sense to me. There's got to be some reasonable balance in there, some wiggle room. I've told this story so many times off air, but you just reminded me of a friend of mine. We used to work together. He's been on the podcast. Actually, he formed a really successful brewery down here in San Diego, and he's killing it. He is a person that can really live at the extreme of treating himself right in terms of food and the quality of everything. Like, he's a very disciplined person, or he's just got a strong belief system around what he's putting in and around his body and his mind. We're not all that he's not on the 80-20 rule. He's on like the 99-1 rule or something like that. Right. And we were on a trip to Chicago. We were getting treated to a very high end steak dinner place. So we all ate very well. And then this restaurant makes its own. It was like a 8-inch high mud pie they make in house. It's their signature dessert, right? And keep in mind, it's Chicago, and like everybody in there looked like Italian mafia, might have been Italian mafia with their wives or girlfriends. So the fact that we were even in there in the first place, I think we had to kind of bribe our way in, right? So you're in there, they come around, hey, would you like a slice of our signature dessert? And his answer to the waiter was, no, I don't eat that shit. The waiter was so offended. I thought we were like going out the door right then, or he's going to call one of these other mafiosa guys to take care of us. But hey, you got to indulge a little here and there, right? The psychological benefit, like you said.
Absolutely. I mean, like if you've never had a bite of ice cream before, you did enough said. Like ice cream is my jam.
You're missing out. Well, yeah. How just to like fast forward this, and I want to be respectful of your time. It sounds like the work you do is super powerful. You work with all different kinds of people. What's the end of the journey for a client with Paul Salter look like? How do you get fired by your client because they're successful?
So it's a fantastic question. I don't know if I've ever been asked, but I hope it's going to be a great answer. So there's two ways to work. There's the coaching and the community, and from a coaching standpoint is where I can answer, because the community, I've designed it to give someone lifetime access, because we don't wake up one day and we simply weight maintenance is easy. That never happens. We always are on this constant quest to, feel, look, and be better. Therefore, having the support, the resources, et cetera, should be a lifetime part of your journey. But from the coaching standpoint, we do a really good job early on in the beginning of our work together, identifying what success looks like. And we also think of as far ahead as, hey, what do I need from this coaching experience so that I no longer need a coach? Those are questions we have discussions around early on. And I really like to emphasize that by the end of our journey, not only am I going to empower you to be your own nutrition coach, which is simply an invaluable skill for so many people, but we're going to really have identified your biggest barriers, your hiccups, your hangups, et cetera, and solve those for you. So for me, a lot of the success I see is in improved relationship with either food or, that pesky clunk of metal we call the scale, and having clients say to me, I no longer fear or have anxiety going to dine out or being offered, a dessert by somebody else. I no longer feel guilty after indulging. I no longer let stepping on the scale ruin my day. Those are the type of wins we're after, where people are truly taking back the quality of their life.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love those questions. What does success look like, and what would it look like to no longer need a coach? I think about, in the consulting world, I think about it as always working ourselves out of a job.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you do a great job and you empower, as you said, and you work yourself out of that job, you've probably earned the right to work your way into potentially a new job, right? So I can just imagine maybe somebody spends a year or whatever it takes with you, their weight loss gets under control, their relationship to food gets under control. You've helped them work through some things mentally, emotionally, but it is the proverbial onion. Hey, Paul, I'm feeling great physically, but this work we've been doing in terms of mindset, I got a lot further to go. So I could see like year 2 with Paul looking a lot different.
You are spot on. Absolutely. Our focus and priority absolutely will shift. Cool. And that's a fun part, because it keeps things fresh for them. Sometimes, talking all about nutrition, of course, that's not literally how it would go, but as in this arbitrary example, it can be hard sometimes to see what the end goal looks like if we don't, take other different paths or bring in other modalities to help see the big picture. So as things evolve, we want to make sure our goals evolve, our resources, our education, et cetera, so that they're prepared to take the next step in their journey.
Yeah, that idea of an end state. We're here talking about the self-mastery journey. It's a never-ending journey, right? It's continuous improvement. It's Kaizen. And back to where you started, we're not really setting ourselves up or gearing for success if we're going to do the 30-day challenge or the 75 hard or whatever it is, and then stop there.
Bingo.
Right? Like, why would you do that, right? We got to continue. There's always more to work on. So that being said, how do people reach out to you, find you, follow you, and work with you if it feels like it might be a good fit?
Yeah, so two places. Number one, if you're into the podcast realm, which obviously your audience is, check out the Screw the Scale podcast. We do a lot of what you and I discussed on this episode today on that podcast, and apply everything through the lens of feeling, looking, and being better, as well as sustainable weight loss. But then, secondly, connect with me on Instagram. Learn more about me, see who I am, and if we jive, reach out to me. My handle's at Paul Salter Coaching, and you'll find plenty of education and plenty of entertainment, dogs, cats, and all of my life adventures related to my own self-mastery journey.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being transparent with yourself as well, being real. What
Yeah.
about you mentioned community also. What does the community aspect look like, pre and during and post working with you directly?
Yeah, so the community is called the 5% community. And this is where we really focus on helping high achieving women in particular, break free of the vicious yo-yo dieting cycle and reclaim their confidence, their control, clarity, and energy levels. And what we do is, we do a great job of blending it, the online continuing education with a community of like-minded people, with also elements of one-on-one coaching. And that looks like not only connecting with the community regularly, daily, weekly, but tuning in for live weekly coaching calls with myself or one of our other fantastic coaches, and then continuing to chip away at, like I said, the lifetime course content where you can really be exposed to new education that you can apply to your life to focus on your biggest challenge, that biggest barrier in front of you, from really, leveling up to that next best version of yourself.
Fantastic. That sounds like a great way to support the process and
Yeah.
and that community. I know, again, you've helped so many people that I'm sure it's a strong community now as well. Just so I'll get links to all that up in the show notes for this episode. I guess last question I've got for you. We've covered a bunch of stuff here today, and I really appreciate it. I love to focus on actionable advice, right? So if somebody could take away one small thing or go make one little tweak in their lives that you think would be helpful in terms of food, relationship to food, diet, weight loss, what would you have for me?
Yeah. So if you are someone listening right now, diving into your relationship with food, your nutrition approach now, because I made you scratch your head and rethink your current approach, I would challenge you to answer the question, is this approach to eating something I can see myself doing the rest of my life? And if it's not, that's a big ass red flag, and you should really look to explore what sustainable looks like for you, because it's not going to look the same as what it looks like for me, your friend, your significant other, etc. Narrow down clarity on what is sustainable for you. Is it 6 times per day? Is it 3 times per day? Is it intermittent fasting? Whatever that looks like, make sure it checks the box of I can see myself eating this way for the rest of my life.
Excellent. I love that question. Super powerful.
Yeah.
Paul, pleasure. Thank you so much for introducing us to what you do. I love how you combine the mindset, the mentality, emotional, physical. It's what an amazing way to support the weight loss journey and sustain it. So, hey, congratulations on the results you're getting and that community. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you for this opportunity. I really enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure, buddy.